Good morning. We're mixing things up a little bit today. We don't want to overmix the heat, so could I ask Lance to turn off that little switch right there? Thank you. All right. The three refuges. Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami.
Namo Lops, Namo Lops, Namo Lops. Good morning again, and welcome to Reno Buddhist Center. So happy to see all of you. Very good. And we welcome you, and we start off with our Shoshinge, which is in the seat back pocket in front of you. This is our pleasantly long poem written over 800 years ago by our lineage founder, Shinran shonin. And it explains his journey through the 7 teachers from India, China, and Japan, teaching about pureland Buddhism. And then it goes into the Wasan, which is homage to taking refuge to Amida Buddha.
We're going to tell all about that in the Dharma talk.
That's right, and we're going to get way into it because we're unpacking the Shoshinge today for your benefit. In case you wanted to know a lot more, you're going to get to. So it'll be good. So while we're chanting, we also offer incense. Incense in gratitude to the infinite wisdom and compassion that supports us every day. And we are so grateful to have that support. So let us do that in gratitude and compassion. Thank you very much. Shoshinge. Kimyo muryo junyorai. Namu fukashigi ko hozo bosai niji. Zai seiji zai obusho. Token shobu jodo in. Kokudo ninden shizen maku. Konru mujoshu shogun. Choho keu daiguze. Gokoshi yui shishoju. Juse myosho monjipo. Uho muryo muhenko. Muge mutaiko enno. Shoujo kangi chieko. Fudan nanshi mushoko. Chonichi ga kosho jinsei. Isai gunjo mukosho. Hongan myogo shoujo go. Shishin shingyo gannin. Joto gakusho dai nehan. Hishi metdo ganjoju. 如来所以公主世唯世弥陀本願界五濁悪事群上界往生如来如実言の法一年喜愛心不断本の特寧藩凡所逆法祭有如主親友会一味聖主信仰上昇後意の水波無明暗頓内心臓死運無上不信じ信心天非尿に幸福運無運無資源妙無安薬心謙虚大狂気即を調整後悪臭一切善悪本部人門心如来偶世願仏言広大小芸者税人妙分大理系弥陀部本元年部邪見教魔なく修上信行十字真理難中死難昔インド祭天四論芸中華自治域思考層現代小構成小位妙如来本税大き釈迦如来両河線一種五妙難天軸ルジュ大事出頭世出の財波有無権先世大乗無情法召喚議事小安楽賢治難行六六信行異行指導楽億年弥陀部本願次年即時流筆上唯の上昇如来語大大悲偶世音天神菩薩増論世奇妙無下根如来永寿ただ謙信寺高専六丁大聖願こういう本願力栄光移動群上昇維新金融空毒大崩壊筆脈入大永収集特使連芸造世界即昇進用法昇進有本の人間人図入賞自音自王芸本自動乱両天使上皇乱書菩薩来三蔵ルシ十上教本書専業気楽法天神菩薩論中芸報道因果見世願方言栄光ゆた力少女死因唯心人惑前本部新人法承知承知即涅槃非死無量光明道小有修上開復系同社継承道難所有名浄土活入万全自力変根修円満特語感染症三部三神慶音言増魔法明道非因一生増惑地偶世死安妖怪称妙化全道独妙部所意公愛上三両逆惑公明明語見因年介入本願大智慧行者小樹今後心狂気一年総合用意大と逆三人即所法所指上楽 現神公開一大教返帰安養管理祭先祖出身反戦人法家二度小弁流極重悪人優勝部化薬剤非正集中煩悩証言水不見大非無見上昇が本次元空妙仏教連民全幕本部人新宗教書後編集戦弱本願具悪性現来生じ臨伝芸慶地義上位小子即入弱上無意楽非知信寺にの有苦教大事修士と上妻無変極辱悪同族自主具道心唯過信しこそせナムアミダ丈夫のこの方は今に自己をへたまえりほしのこうりやぬひわもなくせのもみょうを照らすなりえこがんにしくどくみょうどせいさいどぼ大心おじょはらこ We would like to invite the children to come downstairs for Dharma school. Let's sing them out with Let the Buddha Walk with You.
Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk, just walk. Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk, just walk. Let the Buddha walk with you. Let the Buddha walk with you.
Am I broadcasting? Oh, good. So you may have noticed that we're a little this morning. Am I still broadcasting? Okay. We're a wee bit ragged this morning because part of our team is otherwise occupied. William and Aaron, assistant priests, have welcomed Elizabeth Rose Fisher into the world on Wednesday. Thank you. Very exciting, but it does cause staffing problems for us. So I'm just about here. That is, if I haven't tied my arm inside the microphone of the robe. Okay. I did. Well, that's a Nembutsu miracle. Okay. Today, as Reverend Shelley hinted to you, we're going to dig into the Shoshinge, which is fun and exciting. And Shinran, our lineage founder here, is very happy that we're doing this today. Some temples never do this, but we do it every year, just about. So, and and let me express that I too am happy to see you all here. There are new folks. I can see you sneaking in there, some in the back. And then our dear Dharma friends, who are always welcome as well. So, nice to see you all. Did I say we were going to talk about the Shoshinge today? I covered that, okay. The poem that we just chanted during incense offering, it is a message from Shinran Shonin to us. And when I say to us, you know, I'm really going to need a Shoshinge. Could I bother you? Thank you, Dennis. It's always good to have props. So, it is a poem. What I'm trying to say is, it's not written to us. It's written to you. I don't know how to do that. How do you say you, meaning exactly you, and exactly you, and exactly you, all at the same time? Because us just doesn't have it. It's for you. Shinran wanted you to know this, and so he wrote it down, and his great-great-great-grandson Renyo suggested that we all chant it, and this has become a wonderful process. So, it is a kind of touch point in time and space where we can come in sync or coexist with Shinran. You know, he chanted this, he wrote this was in his mind. When you chant it, now your mind is in exactly the same place and space and time. You know, that's what I'm thinking. So, we will look at the chanting and kind of dive deep into the translation today. We have a wonderful translation written by Ruth Tabra and someone else whose name was forgotten in Hawaii 30 or 40 years ago, but it's a wonderful translation. So, hopefully we can unlock understanding and kind of intrigue everybody into, so what is really going on in here? We do, I just, by way of a plug, on Tuesdays at 6, every week, 52 weeks of the year, unless it's like a really, really bad snowstorm. But even if it's a bad snowstorm, Reverend Shelley and I are here. So on Tuesday at 6, we have chanting practice, joyful chanting. And when we say practice, we're not practicing how to chant. We're really doing it. It's the practice of chanting. But you also learn how to do it. There are pieces in here about Buddhism in general, and there are pieces in here that are really specific to understanding what Shin Buddhism is, our kind of Buddhism. We can find, it tells us that we can find a joyful state of mind that totally trusts in the Dharma, an awareness of the nature of the Dharma, and it offers us a path to nirvana, to joy and non-suffering and infinite compassion, caring about everyone completely. It's a wonderful poem. So, in the Shoshinge, Shinran, he knows that we have troubles from time to time, or a lot of the time, it just depends. And sometimes those troubles are overwhelming for us. We're maybe drowning in them, it feels like. The difficulties of life. He offers us kind of a life preserver. The Nembutsu, these two scrolls up here, Namu Amida Butsu, bringing the Buddha Amida to mind is what that's all about. The name of the chant, which is not written on here, but it actually is written here. So Shoshinge is just sort of how we pronounce it. But the actual name is Shoshin Nimbutsuge. So it's a longer version. In Japanese, they always shorten things into syllables, words to syllables. It is the gata on true faith in the Nembutsu. That's a nice translation of what it means. So a gata is a verse or something like that. Yeah. Faith and the Nembutsu are very important ideas and the core of Shin Buddhism. So, this poem has 3 loose parts. When we chant it, we notice 2 parts. There's a pause, and then we start up again. Interestingly enough, that does not occur in the content pieces. So the first part is about Amida and Shinran's description of how this Buddha, Amida, came into being. There are 3 scrolls on that side of the building which show how that happened. Amida was a king, and then he became a monk, and then he made 48 important vows, and then became Amida Buddha. So that's all this side of the building, actually, posted there. That's the first chunk. The second big piece in the Shoshinge is, could I say a litany of the Dharma teachers without infringing on anyone's copyright? Probably so. All the Dharma teachers, each teacher, actually they're pictured behind me, and it describes their contribution. How did they help us to understand the sutras and understand this process of true entrusting that Shinran offers to us? So that's the second part. And the third, in Japan they go 1, 2, 3. It's really hard for me to do that because this finger stays up, but they count differently than we do. So the first part, the second part. The third part, it ends with this immediate moment, showing the meaning of the Pure Land Sutras in our life now, what they offer to us. So, the Pure Land Sutras, the name, we say the name, Namu Amida Butsu, we call that the name. Even though Amida's name is clearly Amida, it's referred to as the name. And the vow, we say the vow, like it's a big deal. Amida Buddha made 48 vows, but one of them is very, very important, the 18th vow. So that's the big one. Okay. Have you noticed that some people are a little uncomfortable chanting? It seems like. In our culture, we don't have chanting per se. We have singity-songing kind of stuff, but not this chanting idea. So part of the way to encourage people to experience joyful chanting on Tuesday at 6 is to ask this question: why do we chant? Now, the tradition of chanting the sutras dates to the very earliest times in India and before Buddhism, certainly before writing. Sacred words were memorized and recited. The Sanskrit word sutra means a thread. So we follow this important thread of an idea or a thread of history, depends on the sutra, a story. But there's always a thread there that weaves its way through each sutra. We follow a thread of thought. Oh no, I've come up here without my peppermint. Anyway, in Buddhism, this word sutra has come to refer specifically to the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. The Buddha that lived 2,600 years ago, was a prince and became the Buddha, this person you're all aware of. There are, did I say there were many Buddhas? There are many Buddhas. As many Buddhas as there are grains of sand in the Truckee River. The sutra said the Ganges River, but I figure it's a river, lots of grains of sand, you get my idea. Many, many Buddhas. But this one in our time, 2,600 years ago in galactic terms is our time, in our planet, that's very important to us. That's how we can know the Dharma from this occurrence. The Buddha was enlightened at the age of 35, around the year 528 BCE. For those of you who enjoy the classics, that is about the time Plato wrote the Republic. So it's a really, really long time ago. For the rest of his life, the Buddha traveled and taught what he called the Dharma, the truth about how things work. We actually have a series of beautiful paintings that were painted for the temple on the back wall, and that describes the life of Shakyamuni Buddha. So you see all these things are part of the Shoshinge, and then we put them on the walls in the temple, and then when we're teaching and explaining, we can point to this or point to that. So when I say the way everything works, that's a reasonably broad statement, but specifically the nature of sentient beings, of which you are one, and the way we relate to a friendly universe that we live in. His message, Shakyamuni's message was, we suffer and we don't have to. And by following his Buddha Dharma, all sentient beings can attain that same liberation and joy that the Buddha experienced, seeing reality as it truly is. In this time after his enlightenment, the Buddha would travel and teach, going from place to place, engaging with people, and sharing his insights. From early in these travels, his faithful attendant, Ananda, had a special gift. He traveled with the Buddha, and he could remember every sutra word for word from hearing it just once. So he would listen to the sutra, and then when Ananda and the Buddha came back to their vihara, where their sangha was, their teaching place, he would teach that chant to everybody who didn't hear that teaching. And that became this kind of library of sutras we have. The teaching the Buddha gave, Ananda memorized and then shared back. So, since writing was not common 2,600 years ago in India, they used repeating all these sutras in the form of chants. So there's some rhythm, and you know this part comes back to this part, and that comes back to this part. When you memorize a chant, you can kind of have a geography in your mind of where you are in the chant. And the tradition, so all these people learning all these sutras became a library, a kind of library, a living library inside all these people. We say there are 84,000 volumes to a complete sutra library. That's a lot of sutra memorizing that was required before they wrote them down. They started writing them down about 400 years after the Buddha had passed into the great and complete nirvana. So, memorized and chanted, so many, many sutras. Most of them begin in a simple pattern as though Ananda is telling you. So he said, thus I have heard, at this place the Buddha taught to these people this message, and then the text of the sutra comes after that. So, and we've heard different readings on Sunday that often they start that way. So, so this is the long way of answering the question, why we chant. We chant because Buddhists have always chanted. It's a form of memory and experience folded into each other. So when you chant the Shoshinge, you're experiencing exactly that same mind state that was available long ago. The interesting thing about chanting is that we don't have to speak the language to chant it. Through chanting, we connect with that same mind stream of the founders of our tradition. In Shin Buddhism, we chant three important sutras, the larger Pureland Sutra, the Meditation Sutra, and the smaller Pureland Sutra. But on a daily basis, we chant the Shoshinge. And it has some summaries of those sutras in it, as well as Shinran's framing of what this is all about. At the end part, there's some things called wasans. Those are kind of like songs. If I said psalms, you'd say, oh, that is a violation of somebody's copyright. But they're songs. I think psalms are songs, aren't they? Anyway, there's a whole bunch of these Nembutsu, taking refuge, repeats, and then there's a psalm, and then we go to the next one, and we take refuge, we take refuge, we take refuge, and there's another song. So that's the second part of the book that we have here. So, perhaps we should pause now and listen to the actual translation of the Shoshinge that I have been talking about. We will start, if Chris, you could come to the microphone and please read that first section to us.
Good morning. Shoshinge, Shinran's Song of the Nembutsu, Part 1. How inconceivable throughout the universe the ceaseless, boundless activity of Namu Amida Butsu awakens me to what is real and true. This is my reliance, my refuge, my wholehearted trust. Namu Amida Butsu is the call of the vow made by Amida, the Buddha of immeasurable light and life, when he was a Dharmakara, a bodhisattva, who, coming into the presence of the great teacher Lokisvararaja Buddha, was enabled to see what is only visible to the mind's eye, the Kshetra fields of pure lands of all the Buddhas, and how they came to be. Dharmakara's deep yearning was to establish such a realm for all beings, whether good or evil, a realm without discrimination or condition. This was his great vow. He spent 5 kalpas, a time and effort beyond comprehension, fulfilling this most excellent and rare vow, this dynamic vow, this primal vow, the original vow, by which the name conveys enlightenment to all. Throughout the universe, this name resounds. The vow continues like light, unbounded by space or time without hindrance, needless of cause or condition, illuminating our greed, our anger, our blind and calculating foolishness. Inconceivably, just as I am, this all-embracing vow enables me to become a Buddha. Its light in all its many facets, stronger than the light of the moon, stronger by far than the light of the sun, illuminates even the least particle of dust in the countless worlds of the universe, shining equally on all. The Nembutsu of Amida's great vow is the dynamic cause for my birth into the realm of enlightened beings, Jodo, the Pure Land. Because of the vow, my mind of true and trusting, my Shinjin, is assured, as is my ultimate enlightenment, identical with that of Amida's, resulting in the great, complete nirvana. Shakyamuni was born into this world with the sole mission of teaching the treasure ocean of Amida's vow, to rescue we who constantly pollute our streams of birth and death. Please listen to the truth of Shakyamuni's message. The mind of true and trusting, Shinjin, arises from my awakening to the reality of Amida's great vow. No need to sever evil passions to reach nirvana. Ordinary people, holy monks, unbelievers, we who break the 5 precepts, all of us equally, just as we are, though like various polluted rivers, become of one taste on entering the ocean of the vow.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. I have tangled my cord, and it's pulling my ear back this way, and as the weight goes down that way, so so that's the first section. Amida made 48 specific vows to aid sentient beings on her path to enlightenment. Amida Buddha is mentioned in 110 of the Buddha's sutras, but it's clear our focus here is Amida. Yeah. And his vow, the vow to create this Buddha field, described there, where all beings, regardless, not just the gifted ones. I think that was Amida's real motivation, was that he could see that the Dharma would probably work for really super gifted folks, spiritually gifted folks. It would work great, the way it was taught. But how to generate a energetic field of inclusion that would make it accessible for even the least qualified, the most messed up, the most confused, and creating such a field was Buddha's intent. As Shinran wrote and Chris read, the ultimate intention of the Buddha's teaching was to communicate and clarify this primal vow. The Hongan, we say, means big vow, of Amida Buddha. What is the primal vow? The fundamental and universal aspiration that compassionately sustains all beings. This vow arises from the limitless wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. It embraces every sentient being. It leads to enlightenment, regardless of our karmic condition. The Shoshinge we chant is filled with ideas that come from these Pure Land Sutras, from the writings of the great Pure Land masters, and from the ideas of Shinran Shonin. These chants lead us to become aware of the tremendous virtue of Amida Buddha, shared with all of us. During the incense offering, we hear the words of the sutra in a harmonious oneness of the chant. individual voices join in unity in a chant, just as all rivers are joined in one taste when they reach the ocean. The Dharma is given a voice, it's heard, and so it is received by all of us. Our chanting becomes an expression of deep gratitude and appreciation for the Buddha's great benevolence, once we had this understanding. Let's, just looking at the Shoshinge book for a second, our service here is pretty traditional, similar to services that you'd experience in Japan as well. We always begin with Shoshinge chanting and the incense offering. If you notice, have I gone off the... I looked in the drawer and there was only one battery. I used to hide emergency... Yay!
It's a miracle.
Another miracle. One moment, please. Can you hear me now? Wow, boy. I love it when a plan comes together. That's why we have spare batteries underneath the cushion, if anybody needed to know that. That did take me a little bit off the one taste. So the vow is really important, and I shouldn't have interrupted there, but you couldn't hear me. So, looking at the Shoshinge book, have you noticed that when Reverend Shelley picks up the book, she puts it on her forehead? She does that. It's a sign of appreciation, respect, and gratitude to what's contained in here when we do that. So we start the chant with the ringing of the bell. You might notice that there's 2 dots here. We usually start things with 2 bells, and we end with 1 bell. It's actually usually a warning bell to tell you it's about to end, but like that. The pitch and pace, we follow whatever the chanting leader offers us. So an important part of this as a Buddhist practice is we tune in to what's going on with the chant. The leader starts the first line, we hear that, and then we come in at the second line and we kind of go with what the leader's got going. We have to listen closely and connect with mindfulness and awareness. And stay in tune with the leader. Some folks may be unsure about how to pronounce the words of the Shoshinge, because really when you open this and you look at it, it's a little daunting. There are really 4 different notations written on the page. Obviously, there are these Chinese characters, the kanji. Only a few of us can read those. So then there are the little characters next to it. And that's for people who don't know the kanji, but it tells them what sound it makes. So phonetic descriptions. In the hiragana, that's an alphabet the Japanese use to write Japanese words. They have a separate alphabet to write foreign words because they're foreign. Okay. And then the good part, the Roman letters. Strength and honor. The Roman letters are the only thing we can really use here. Not the only thing. That, and then see these funny little ticky-boo marks next to the Roman letters? Those, like beneath, those are the intonation marks. So they tell us if it goes up, or it goes even, or it goes down at that point. So, pitch indicators, maybe that's a better word for that. I don't know. I don't know music, so I don't know how to describe it. In the wasans, those get really complicated. if we flick back to the wasans, you'll see some of these. There's an A, and there's like 15 little lines after it. So what that means is you go ah, 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 like that, or something. Depends on which page I got to. All these things we can learn, and it's a beautiful style. What I always recommend when people are new is just go ah until they finish going ah, and then go to the next thing. So, the Romaji. That's a Japanese word. The Roman letters don't require much explanation. Those are the ones we can read, except in English, those same, how many are there? 5 letters, have lots of different sounds. English is just a mess in terms of letters and sounds. So, the good news is Japanese is not a mess. It is quite organized. So when we transliterate into the Roman letters, if we see the letter A, it can only make the sound ah. If we see the letter I, it can only make the sound A. And that gets confusing because it's, if you had it written down, it would be easier. The E, I'm getting some stage direction here. Okay, digging a hole. The E makes an A sound. The O is ko, and the U is oo, and it's always like that. So whenever you read these sounds, they have a common pattern. That makes it easy and reliable so that when we start, we can say kimyo muryo junyo rai, and it always comes out like that. There's no variation or differences. That means I take refuge in the Buddha, immeasurable life. So, okay, let's read some more of the translation of what Shinran wanted us to know. Christina, if you please.
Good morning. Shoshinge, Shinran's Song of the Nembutsu, Part 2. To receive and be held, never to be let go by Amida's great compassion, is to be perpetually transformed, embraced, protected by its light. Yet, while my inner darkness is thus broken, my cloudy mists of anger, hatred, and desire continue to obscure Shinran's bright sky. Though Shinran, in the same way as sunlight filtered through mists and clouds, continues to cast light into the darkness below. To receive this Shinran is to know great joy. Simultaneously, I am emancipated from the limbo of a world without Dharma. Of all of us, good and evil together, who hear and awaken to Amida's great vow, the Buddha says, we are persons of Shinran. Those who comprehend this completely are like a white lotus blooming. Yet, having received this mind of true entrusting, this Shinran, it is the most difficult of all difficulties to neither doubt nor question it, to retain it, not forgetting that the Nembutsu of Amida's great vow is directed to all sentient beings, including arrogant persons and those of wrong views. The great Dharma teachers of ancient India, China, and Japan make clear Shakyamuni's emphasis that when compared with Amida Buddha's pure activity, we sentient beings are all calculating and defiled. Sakyamuni's teaching shows to us our inconceivable endowment, universal enlightenment made possible through Amida's great vow. In a Dharma talk on Mount Lanka, Sakyamuni talked about Ryuju, a bodhisattva of southern India who appeared in this world to destroy misleading views of being and non-being. Ryuju proclaimed the great Dharma of the Mahayana and identified for us the joyous stage of birth in the Pure Land. He described this Pure Land way as like the ease of an ocean voyage, whereas the way of difficult practices is like traveling a rough and dangerous path on foot. Once we entrust to the vessel of Amita's vow, at that instant, says Ryuju, our birth in the Pure Land is assured. To fully express our gratitude for this, let us utter Amida Buddha's name always. The Pure Land Treatise, the Jodoran, compiled by the Bodhisattva Tenjin in India, urges us to rely on the Tathagata of unhindered light, Amida. Through the larger Pure Land Sutra, which makes clear the truth of Amida's 18th vow, the vow which gives to each and every one of us the mind of true, entrusting Shinran, and the certain eventuality of our joining the great company of bodhisattvas in the treasure ocean of Namu Amida Butsu at the very moment of our entrusting. Seishin says, we are able to see the truth of things as they are, of suchness, of instantaneously we become a conduit for the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. This being so, though we can now burst free from this thicket of our passions, having become a conduit for wisdom and compassion in this transformed state, we freely plunge back into the garden of birth and death. It is Shinran alone that causes all this. Such is the teaching of Danran, a bodhisattva in China, before whom the benevolent Buddhist emperor Wu Ti always bowed his head. Danran received Chinese translations of the Pure Land Sutras and Seishin's writings from the sage Bodhidharma. Turning to these teachings, Danran burned his Taoist texts. His own writings say that when we ordinary foolish beings realize the mind of true entrusting, the mind of Shinran, though we still wander in samsara, the world of birth and death, at the same time we are shown nirvana, the world of the Buddha, the world of things as they are, of which is real and true.
And there's one more part. Holly, if you could read that part.
Shoshinge, Shinran's Song of the Nembutsu, Part 3. In this true and real wisdom of Amida's realm, all sentient beings, everything that exists, totally and equally, become as one. The great teacher Doshaku showed us the difficulty of the path of self-power practice. He clarified that for ordinary men and women, the best way to Buddhahood is the Pure Land path, a path of entrusting in the wise and compassionate power of the vow. Even millions of self-power practices are useless. Doshaku urges the single practice of saying the name Namu Amida Butsu, from which arises the uncalculated directness, the single focus, and the constancy of the mind of true entrusting, the mind of Shinran. Doshaku explains that this is the pure mind, which is in total contrast to our mind of doubt. At any age, in any age, we who happen to encounter the drawing power of the great compassion of the vow, even though throughout our lives we create evil, we will reach the Pure Land and the final state, enlightenment. It is Zendo alone who teaches us the Buddha's true meaning in disclosing that for we who break the 5 precepts, we who constantly pollute our streams of birth and death, as we come to hear the vow, Amida's light and name manifest cause and condition, and for eternity into the great wisdom ocean. This all Nembutsu followers receive, Shinran's diamond-like mind, in the joy of this single moment, when we encounter the wisdom of the Buddha, exactly as Queen Videhi did. We simultaneously receive Shinran's 3 benefits: a joyful mind, totally entrusting in the vow, an awareness of the nature of the Dharma, and the issuance of nirvana. Genshin said on Mount Hei in Japan, widely explored the whole of Shakyamuni's teachings, and coming to those of the Pure Land path, Genshin recommended this path to all. However, he makes a clear distinction between the shallowness of self-power Nembutsu, leading only to the borders of the Pure Land, leaving us at a way station, with the depths of the true Nembutsu, that assures us into the heart of Amida's realm. True Nembutsu can be uttered by the lowest of the low. Amida is always pursuing them, drawing them in. Such one am I, Genshin confesses, even though I am blinded by the anguish of my passions. Great compassion is always without interruption, tirelessly illuminating me. The great Buddhist teacher Genku, out of compassion for all beings, established the true way of Nembutsu teaching in Japan. He opened to ordinary persons everywhere the gate of Amida's 18th vow. Our turbulent, endless cycle of birth and death, going and returning, is due to our mind of doubt, says Genku. But in the Nembutsu, when we receive the decisiveness of the mind of Shinran, the mind of true entrusting, immediately, without fail, we are assured of entering Nirvana's peaceful world. Thus, these bodhisattvas and great teachers of India, China, and Japan have shown us the meaning of the larger Pure Land Sutra, the meaning of the name and the vow, liberating innumerable beings, those of us who are most defiled and calculating, those of us who are without hope. Their teachings speak to us directly, so that now, at this present moment, today, and always through our lives, we who are priests, we who are lay people, being of one mind together, abandoning all superstitions, abandoning self-power and petitionary practices, we need only believe in this true Nembutsu way.
Thank you, Christina and Holly. So that's the whole Shoshinge in English, with a little extra talking. We recognize clearly there, some of us come to the temple with problems. What the Shoshinge says to you is, don't give up. Understand that you have all of us, the Sangha, and all of Buddhism. It's here for you. All the Dharma teachers are here for you. This Nembutsu way is very simple. Amida Buddha manifested a place where you do belong, where you can be at rest and take refuge. Shinran knew that you worry about things a lot. And the Shoshinge teaches that it's going to be all right. You can fall back on the Dharma. Please don't give up. Don't be ashamed or afraid. You're okay, just as you are. Amida Buddha knows that it's not easy for you. That is why he manifested his Pure Land, the place where you belong, where you are nurtured and supported, where you can live in gratitude, compassion, and joy. There on the altar is Amida Buddha, offering boundless wisdom and compassion to us all. Look at that altar and feel supported whenever you do. You are held, never to be let go, cared for and protected. Be of light heart. Feel the warmth of being cared for by the vastness of a wise and compassionate universe. Let's share the blessing the universe wishes for you all together. Just repeat after me. May you be happy.
May you be happy.
May you be free from harm.
May you be free from harm.
May you receive boundless compassion.
May you receive boundless compassion.
And may peace and harmony fill your heart.
May peace and harmony fill your heart.
Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Thank you so much, and thank you to our readers for sharing Shinran's words in English. So, we'll finish by singing our Reno Buddhist Center theme song. It's on page 49 of the service book. If you would stand while you do that, it's always better. Away, away, come away with me, where the grass grows wild and the winds blow free. Away, away, come away with me, and I'll build you a home in the meadow. Come, come, there's a wondrous land, with a hopeful heart and a willing hand. Come, come, there's a wondrous land, where I'll build you a home in the meadow. The stars, oh how bright and far, on a world of pure and eternal law. The stars, oh how bright they'll shine, on the home we will build in the meadow. Come, come, there's a wondrous land, for the hopeful heart and the willing hand. Come, come, there's a wondrous land, where I'll build you a home in the meadow. And the last thing, that a Sunday service is not complete without announcements, right? Okay. Take heart. November 4th, which I think is next Saturday, is that right? Is going to be bingo night. We only have bingo night once a year, so it's kind of exciting. Everyone is invited. It's fun to play bingo, and just there will be some treats and such like there, and we will share community together. So, thank you all very much. I forgot about the tea and treats. There's tea and treats downstairs. Newcomers, there's Newcomers Circle downstairs. So if you have questions about what happened today, come